Welcome to the Militia gaming community. I'm Trigger, and in this video I'm going to teach you exactly how to corner in Need for Speed Heat, and hopefully this makes you faster. Let's go! This is a guide that will feature a variety of information. Some of you will know and understand this already, but because there are so many new players to Heat as of the last couple of months, I thought it would be valuable to put out a cornering technique video. I'm going to cover everything I know and understand about cornering in Need for Speed Heat, like racing lines, turn apex, braking, throttle control, and speak about the differences between the handling models of the cars. But I'm also going to cover some of the techniques that are specific to Need for Speed Heat because of the handling system that it has. These will be the quote-unquote secrets to cornering in Need for Speed Heat. Let's start with the most elementary concept of cornering, and that's racing lines. In its most basic form, the wider you can take a turn, the faster your car can go, and the tighter you take a turn, the slower your car will have to go. This is true in Need for Speed Heat as well, but the line that you take through the turn is important. If you take too tight of a line, you will lose a lot of speed. If you choose a wide line, your car will drive faster, but you're going to have to cover a larger distance, which effectively makes you slower through the turn. The line that you want is the optimal combination of those two options. This is called the racing line. The turn apex is where the racing line intersects the tightest line for that turn. This is generally where you would begin to accelerate out of the turn. In Need for Speed Heat, it's a little bit different from that, but I'll go over that in just a moment. I want to make sure that you guys grasp the concept of taking the correct line for the turn. You want to start as wide as you can. Then you turn into the apex and end as wide as you can. This will maximize your speed through the corner. Now, in normal racing, braking should occur before the turn-in point. The car should be coasting with no braking and no acceleration to the apex, and then the driver would accelerate out of the turn. But Need for Speed Heat has a drifting mechanic that allows you to enter turns at near or at full speed and then utilize both drifting and braking to adjust your car's angle to the correct racing line, thus maximizing your corner speed. To do this though, it doesn't tell you about a couple of things that are important. First, if the turn is not super sharp, you can just steer through that turn without braking, or what I like to call priming the drift mechanic. You don't have to do either one of those things. Priming the drift mechanic is when you let off the gas for a split second right before the turn and then press the gas again quickly. This tells the game that if the corner is sharp enough, you want the car to drift the corner instead of grip the corner. A lot of times though, the corner falls somewhere in between needing to go into a full drift and being able to simply steer through it. For those corners in the middle, you will need to prime the drift mechanic because this actually increases the angle of your car and allows you to get through the turn because the turn really isn't tight enough to cause your car to go into a full drift, but it's also just a little bit too tight to steer through it without doing this. Braking is necessary when your speed will carry you outside of the optimal racing line. But what most people don't know, and this is where the quote-unquote secret comes in, is that you will not be braking before the turn. You will actually be braking during the turn. Doing this in Need for Speed Heat will sharpen your turning angle, thus allowing you to maintain the optimal racing line. The amount of time you hold the brake down will determine just how much you will tighten your angle. And this amount of time will be dependent on the car's handling model. Some cars have the ability to turn very, very sharply, and some don't. The ones that do only require a quick tap of the brake in the middle of the corner to tighten up the angle, while others that don't may require you to hold the brake for a second or two. Keep in mind that braking does slow down your speed as well, so those cars that only require a quick tap of the brake will certainly enter and exit the turn at higher speeds. Let's go into example because this is a lot of information and I just want to show you exactly what this looks like with this F40. First, I'm gonna take this corner without braking or priming the drift mechanic, so that you can see that this corner is too sharp when traveling at higher speeds to simply steer through the corner. Notice that when I go through this corner, it ends up being super wide, I'm in the dirt, and I run into that wall. I'm holding left on the stick the entire time. I've got this thing cranked all the way to the left, and this is the result when you don't prime the drift mechanic. All right, next I'm gonna show you what happens when I prime the drift mechanic just before going into the turn at the exact same speed so that you can see the difference. Notice on this clip that the car does still go off the road because it's not turning sharp enough, but it doesn't hit the wall, it doesn't hit that mountain on the side because the turning angle is actually a lot tighter. I've primed the drift mechanic and I've entered this turn. Also notice that the car doesn't slide. The F40 is pretty unique in that it turns very, very well. It's like the other top 5 or 6 cars that have a very sharp turning angle, and it can take this turn at a ridiculous speed. But finally, let's look what happens when I prime the drift mechanic like I did in clip 2, and then I tap the brake to adjust my angle mid-turn. Notice that after tapping the brake, the car will adjust itself and the back end slides a little to the right, and I take the turn perfectly. This is why you need to understand when to use your brakes. I didn't brake at all going into that turn. I didn't touch the brakes until I was midway through that turn. Now I know that on this turn, I have to hit the brake, otherwise the car is going to go into the dirt. So I'm prepared to do that. It's a little bit challenging when you don't know the course, so I recommend if you really want to be fast at these courses, you do have to practice them. You can't just go into it and think you're going to be fast with this method. All right, this in a nutshell is how you should attack every single corner in Need for Speed Heat. Know the racing line for that corner, prime the drift mechanic by letting off the gas and smashing it again just before you enter the turn, and then if necessary, use the brake to sharpen your turn angle. The goal is to enter the turn with as much speed as possible without deviating from the optimal racing line. Some turns require a drift and some do not. Slower cars will need to drift the corner, faster cars will be able to grip their way through it. Now for one more secret. Once you prime the drift mechanic, the game will assume that you want to drift as long as you are turning the steering wheel to the left or to the right, and you're traveling fast enough. What this allows you to do is string multiple drift corners together without having to let off of the throttle. This is particularly useful with back-to-back turns that are fairly sharp. This is again not something that the game tells you, and you can see it in this clip. You make that right turn, immediately switch back, and make the left turn. Now it's just a short drift because the Ferrari F40 does stick to the ground very, very well and has a very nice sharp turning angle. But in this clip you can see it. I turn to the right, you drift the corner. Then immediately back left and you're still drifting. I didn't let off the gas at all, nor did I hit the brake at all. I just initiated the drift mechanic in the beginning and then drifted both corners flawlessly. Understanding these concepts will no doubt make you faster in Need for Speed Heat, but because the handling model of this game is so different from other games, I feel like this might throw you off when you start playing another racing game. Just know that each game has its own set of physics. Need for Speed Heats are a little bit strange or different from most. Some of them are really super realistic, and some of them are very unrealistic like this one. Both are fun to drive though if you just love racing games, and that's what I like. Anyways, that's really it for this one, guys. I know this is a very deep subject and I tried to get it into a fairly short video. If you guys have any questions about this, please don't hesitate to ask, and don't hesitate to watch this video over and over. There are a few things that I think you can study and learn from by watching these clips and listening to what I had to say earlier in the video. All right, my DMs are always open, guys. Send me a message on Instagram, Twitter, or Discord. Shout out to all the Militia subs. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.